ICE agents just stormed a Brooklyn business funneling illegal migrants into America's trucking industry. What they found shocked Trump and Noam.
Breaking news: the chaotic scene unfolding here in New York City. Federal authorities, including ICE agents, conducting a crackdown late today, sweeping through the well-known area of Canal Street in Lower Manhattan.
Where are you from?
India.
India.
China.
China. China.
The raid didn't start as a spy case. It started with a deadly collision in Florida involving a trucker who could barely speak English, yet was holding a California commercial driver's license he never should have had.
We do have new details after an undocumented migrant truck driver was charged with causing a crash that killed 3 people in Florida.
That crash blew open a quiet investigation, one tracing how a New York nonprofit, the Chinese American Trucker Organization, helped over 1,000 Chinese nationals not only come to the U.S. illegally, but also obtain licenses to operate heavy rigs on U.S. roads, including how to evade ICE.
Number 1 is hardening your physical space. Number 3, identifying a list of individuals that are authorized to respond if ICE comes to the door, and then having a clear protocol.
And behind it all was a web of front groups tied to Beijing's United Front Work Department, the same networks linked to funding anti-ICE protests. Tonight, we're doing a deep dive on how a trucking license scandal became a national security alert. This is the story of Operation Twin Shield and the shadow network behind America's highways. What investigators uncovered in the days following the Brooklyn raid was far more elaborate than a single fraudulent license scheme. At the center of it all stood a non-profit few Americans had ever heard of, the Chinese American Trucker Organization USA Incorporated. On paper, it called itself a professional trade association, a group dedicated to helping Chinese immigrants enter America's trucking industry. But federal filings, business records, and a series of leaked social media videos revealed a much broader story, one that blurred the line between opportunity and organized exploitation. The thing is, K2 operated from the same modest New York office as a placement agency known as Red Apple Employment Agency, a business that, according to a 2024 Wall Street Journal report, found work for Chinese nationals both with and without legal status. When they dug deeper, they found a connecting thread between K2 and Red Apple. They were both owned by one woman, Gang Hang, a charismatic figure whose resume stretched deep into Beijing's overseas networks. Under Gang's direction, Cartel instructors promised commercial driver's licenses in as little as 3 weeks. No waiting, no appointments, their Chinese ads said. Many of whom had crossed the southern border illegally, filmed themselves taking lessons in Mandarin, sometimes using California or New York addresses to apply for CDLs. In one video, a young man calling himself at Tiange 999 celebrated passing his exam after only a month of training in Virginia.
Number 1, okay, we're starting all the way up. You are in the driving, you cannot stop in the middle.
There were also several other videos of Chinese migrants being taught how to drive the truck. The organization claimed to have helped more than 1,000 Chinese students obtain CDLs, boasting that not one has failed. The promise sounded almost impossible, and to federal agents, it was a red flag. But that wasn't all. But what made this network extraordinary wasn't just its efficiency, it was its connections. Gang Hang had previously served in leadership roles within the American Shanxi General Chamber of Commerce. But does this mean the Chinese Communist Party has its hands deep in the US? Well, yes, that has been suspected for years now, but the exact strategy they were using to cultivate American influence was unknown. Until now. To national security analysts, that discovery transformed a labor issue into something much larger. For years, the organization operated openly, posting photos, advertising in Mandarin, and holding graduation ceremonies for new drivers. Yet, beneath the public facade, agents now suspect it functioned as a pipeline, helping unvetted migrants obtain federally recognized credentials that granted access to sensitive transport corridors. By the time ICE moved in, the damage had already spread across multiple states. More than 1,000 newly certified drivers were on the road, many hauling freight for companies unaware of the network that had put them behind the wheel. The discovery was just the beginning. As agents traced financial records and training rosters, they began finding another layer: community nonprofits, political connections, and even taxpayer-funded organizations that appeared to shield the same migrant networks ICE was now trying to dismantle. As agents followed the paper trail from the trucking schools, their search widened. The names showing up on funding ledgers and community grant lists weren't from logistics firms or employment agencies. They were from nonprofits, some registered as charities, others as civic groups, many operating in the same Chinese community circles as Cartel. One stood out immediately: the Chinese American Planning Council, or CPC. Like CATOU, CPC presented itself as a community empowerment organization, receiving millions in city, state, and federal funds. But when undercover footage surfaced earlier this year, ICE investigators realized they were looking at something more than a social service agency. The seminar, filmed inside a New York restaurant, was hosted and coordinated by CPC, the same organization receiving nearly $500,000 from Chinese state-linked financial institutions. Federal records also show the CPC's president, Wayne Ho, sits on multiple state advisory councils, appointed by Governor Kathy Hochul.
Again, no matter what kind of organization or business that you're in, we have a few ways that you can get that.
The footage shocked even seasoned ICE veterans. Here was an NGO, funded by American taxpayers and CCP-adjacent sources, coaching migrants on how to resist enforcement, right down to internal alert systems and code words. When pressed for comment, CPC did not respond, but congressional leaders did. Homeland Security Chairman Mark Green called it deeply troubling that U.S. tax dollars may have supported an organization helping illegal aliens subvert our laws. To federal investigators, the connection between groups like CPC and networks like CATOU wasn't just coincidence. It illustrated a growing overlap between political activism, migration pipelines, and foreign influence operations. Behind the headlines, officials began mapping shared donors, overlapping leadership, and a pattern of quiet cooperation. For ICE, the raids were no longer about driver's licenses or employment fraud. They were about identifying where civic outreach ends and foreign interference begins. What started as a traffic accident had now become a national investigation into influence, infiltration, and the quiet erosion of America's enforcement system. By late summer, the investigation had gone beyond the classroom and the trucking yard. What began as a licensing probe was now a nationwide operation, codenamed Twin Shield, and it unearthed a much bigger fraud and smuggling network that included marriage fraud and visa-linked networks feeding foreign nationals into critical U.S. industries.
Florida was one of 10 states, including California, Illinois, New York, Texas, and Pennsylvania, that are flooding the trucking industry with illegal foreign labor.
Neither the original intelligence coming in from the informant or the subsequent seizure of 20,000 fake driver's licenses from Hong Kong and China got the FBI off its stuff.
The mission of the operation was to dismantle the infrastructure that allowed unvetted migrants to acquire legal status, commercial credentials, and, in some cases, political influence in the U.S. At the center of this crackdown stood one name already known to both ICE and the FBI, Wang Yibing, president of the Taishan Women's Association of New York. For years, Wang had been a familiar face at cultural banquets and diaspora fundraisers, often photographed beneath red banners praising friendship with the motherland. To federal agents, those events were more than a celebration of culture. They were contact points, the social spaces where Beijing's United Front quietly maintained its reach. On that morning, ICE officers from Twin Shield moved in. Neighbors watched as the woman once dubbed the bridge between Chinatown and Beijing was led away in handcuffs. Her attorney called it a misunderstanding, but investigators called it the beginning. Federal sources confirmed Wang's detention was part of a broader sweep targeting suspected visa fraud, unregistered foreign agent activity, and misuse of community nonprofits as political fronts. Her arrest came months after FBI agents questioned her about organizing pro-Beijing demonstrations during Taiwan's presidential transit and about her relationship with officials at the Chinese consulate in New York. Within days, Allied operations hit offices in Virginia, Texas, and California. Dozens of marriage visa petitions were frozen, hundreds of license applications flagged for review. DHS officials described it as the first coordinated enforcement action linking immigration fraud to transnational influence networks. Operation Twin Shield marked a new phase in the war over infiltration. For the first time, ICE and the FBI were working side by side, not just to deport, but to dismantle the entire network. By the fall, investigators realized the ICE raids, trucking school busts, and NGO inquiries weren't isolated cases. DHS analysts began calling them converging channels, separate pipelines feeding the same network of influence. The same United Front-linked circles that produced commercial license pipelines also appeared in the orbit of the Chinese American Planning Council. The NGO earlier caught teaching migrants how to avoid ICE. Chinese state-owned bank transfers began surfacing across both investigations. Washington moved quickly. the Department of Homeland Security briefed Justice and Treasury, triggering a tri-agency review of NGO funding and foreign agent compliance. Treasury analysts traced wire transfers from the Bank of China and ICBC. Then came confirmation of how deep the fraud ran. In Florida, DMV employees were arrested for selling more than 1,000 commercial licenses to illegal migrants with no tests, no background checks, and no proof of residency.
8 employees for the DMV were arrested for selling driver's license to more than 1,000 illegal migrants without making them go through testing, training, or vetting in what authorities are calling a major driver's license fraud scheme. They accepted cash payments to bypass the mandatory requirements such as written tests, skills tests, and proof of residency or legal presence.
Federal investigators now believe similar schemes stretch through at least 10 states, from California and Illinois to Texas and Pennsylvania, effectively flooding the industry with unvetted foreign labor. These cases weren't just cases of fraud, because in Austin, a few months ago, a 37-year-old immigrant driver crashed his semi-truck into 17 vehicles in Austin, killing 5 people, including 2 children.
Ariah's tractor-trailer that was carrying goods for Amazon failed to slow down. 5 people were killed at the scene, including a child and an infant. 11 others were injured and taken to local hospitals.
The case reignited pressure on DHS to expose how fraudulent CDLs were being used to place unqualified drivers on America's roads and who profited behind the scenes. For national security officials, the danger was that every fraudulent CDL represented potential access to power plants, refineries, and military-adjacent shipping lanes. As Operation Twin Shield widened, the question facing U.S. officials was no longer who crossed the border, but who built the system that let them drive straight through it. Tonight's investigation leaves one truth clear: the system meant to safeguard America's roads and borders is more connected and more vulnerable than anyone imagined. Federal agencies have confirmed the arrests, the license freezes, and the ongoing reviews of nonprofit funding. What remains unconfirmed is how far these networks truly reach, or how many of their links lead back overseas. In that gray zone between proof and suspicion, investigations continue, quietly, methodically, and far from the cameras. For every name on a federal warrant, there are dozens more still operating in plain sight, in offices, classrooms, and community centers built to look ordinary. And for every mile of highway that keeps the country moving, there's another question about who's behind the wheel and who put them there. If these channels continue unchecked, they won't just reshape America's trucking routes, they'll redefine its borders. This story is developing. If you found this video valuable, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications. And if you want more videos exactly like this, click any of the cards in front of you right now.